Hello everyone, I am Marco Resciniti from Pharmatrans Switzerland, and here we are today to present you our new line for co-processed excipient for direct compression use. The authors of this presentation are myself, Marco Resciniti, pharmacist with a PhD in pharmaceutical technology and working as responsible for commercial and marketing activities in Pharmatrans, along with Dr. Vijay Kumar from Gangval Chemicals, serving today the Gangval as a senior business development manager. DiCOM SANAQ is a Swiss-based company located in Basel and active in the supply of excipient since 1983. From 2001, Pharmatrans became one of international supplier of neutral beads for sustained release formulation. And in 2018, Pharmatrans started a cooperation with Gangval to study, promote, and market co-processed excipient for direct compression use. Gangval Chemical is a company active in specialty pharmaceutical ingredient production, and in 2011 started his business to supply excipient for pharmaceutical application. In 2015, through his own proprietary technology of granulation, Gangval started the production of a blend for co-processed excipient for direct compression use. Today, Pharmatrans wants to present his latest family of product, DiCOM SANAQ, offering to the R&D and formulator people innovative solution for solid dosage form formulation through the direct compression technology. First of all, let's have a quick look on the pharmaceutical industry value chain, showing here below all the steps involved in the drug in the formulation process from the R&D to the consumer. The topic of today is the direct compression, and therefore it is a process applied at the manufacturing step of formulation process. In details, during this presentation, we want to talk about excipient for direct compression use. The direct compression is a technology alternative to the wet granulation, aiming to save cost, increase profit, and reduce the manufacturing process time. This target is achieved because with this excipient, there is the possibility for a formulator to use a special blend of material, avoiding several intermediate steps and reducing therefore the unit's operation time, reducing the analytical time, reducing the risk to lose material during the manufacturing process. Because we talk about a solid dosage formulation, one of the most important parameter formulator has to consider is the characteristics of the powders. Indeed, every powder, whatever it is, API or excipient, normally shows a very bad and poor flowability. In order to overcome this problem, the normal technology is to granulate through dry granulation or wet granulation the excipients along with the API in order at the end to obtain a suitable blend of powder useful to be put in a tablet machine for compression. With the direct compression, indeed, the approach is different because the formulator has the possibility to simply blend the active ingredients, avoiding all the intermediate step of granulation along with suitable excipients. The product that Pharmatrans wants to present is a basket of products manufactured in Gangwal, India, in a site certified with GMP and ISO certificate, and in most of the cases even awarded with Type 4 DMF. Here we have a list of the ready blends available today. We have indeed blends suitable for immediate release formulation like DiCOM SANAQ PL005. Then we have the line SP204 and 207. Those blends are prepared to formulate APIs sensitive to the pH. Then we have the SP205 and 206 blends manufactured and customized to formulate APIs sensitive to moisture. And then we have the SR group, the SR300 and the SR301. Over there we have matrix system suitable for modified release formulation. The first product we want to present is the DiCOM SANAQ PL005. It is a blend having as a key ingredient the dibasic calcium phosphate anhydrous blended with other excipient traditionally and very well known like MCC, colloidal silicon dioxide and starch. The aim of this blend is to reduce or avoid the side effect that normally the basic calcium phosphate anhydrous has and brings on the formulation. Indeed, the dibasic calcium phosphate anhydrous usually has capping and lamination problems, and at the end also some low points and negative characteristics because his abrasive activity on the punch may create tablets with a gray surface and black particles. Using the PL005, which is a co-processed blend, of course you can avoid these traditional side effect of the basic calcium phosphate anhydrous. On this slide, we have on the left the list of some chemical-physical parameters like bulk density, houseness ratio, compressibility, and flow rate, showing how this material it is suitable for direct compression. On the right side, we have a set of photos showing how the crystals of the PL005 obtained through the granulation of the single excipient shows different physical characteristics. In order to test the effectiveness of the PL005, we made in lab a batch of amlodipine basylate tablets, 5 mg, simply blending the active ingredient together with the PL005 and then completing with lubricant magnesium stearate. We obtained a very regular tablets without any problem on the surface. We could even work the tableting machine at a reasonable fast speed without any problems on the punches. And then we tested the dissolution profile of these tablets and we have seen a very good dissolution curve. Another blend belongs to the DiCOM DC is the SP204. In this blend, one of the key ingredients is the light magnesium oxide. Indeed, light magnesium oxide is an ingredient granting a certain neutral pH, and therefore it is a good ingredient to be used in the blend, whereas we want to formulate APIs sensitive to the acid. Here we have, as before, a list of physicochemical parameters of the SP204, and a set of photos of the crystal obtained granulating and blending the individual excipients in order to obtain the sp2O4. In order to test the effectiveness of the sp2O4 as ingredient suitable to prevent the degradation and the instability of active ingredients sensitive to pH, we made trials manufacturing tablets 40 milligrams of pantoprazole sodium. The pantoprazole was blended with the sp2O4 and then completed with the addition of sodium starch glycolate and magnesium stearate. We obtained in this case very good tablets without any problems of instability of pantoprazole, even because the stress of the active ingredient during the process is relatively less than a traditional granulation process. Moreover, the presence of the light magnesium oxide creates a suitable environment to stabilize the active ingredient. The product has, at the end, has been tested with a dissolution showing the gastroresistance and the release of the active ingredient during the time. In all the batches, we have seen that there are a very good acid resistance, and the release of the active ingredient is accordingly the established limit by the pharmacopoeia. The sp2O5 and 2O6 are even other mixtures prepared by Gangwal and suitable for the formulation of, in this case, hygroscopic and moisture-sensitive API. In this blend, the key ingredient is the presence of colloidal silicon dioxide. In fact, there is a synergistic activity in protection between granted by the MCC and colloidal silicon dioxide. These blends are very interesting because it works as a nice and interesting solution to mix APIs in a system whereas there is absorption of moisture and therefore reducing the risk of degradation during the blend and granulation, which is avoided. The difference between the sp2O5 and 2O6 is the kind of super disintegrant. In the case of sp2O5, we did use crospovidone, and in the case of sp2O6, we did use sodium starch glycolate. Here we have, even in this case, a set of photos showing how the crystals of the blend, in this case the sp2O5, is very characteristics and completely different from the crystal of the individual ingredients. Then we want to talk a while about the SR family. The SR is a group of excipients for direct compression use, quite complex. In fact, SR stays as a sustained release, and the aim of these blends is to offer to the formulator ready-made system suitable for matrix release, for matrix suitable for sustained release active ingredient. One of the key points of this blend is the capability and the property of swelling once these blends are in contact with the liquid. and therefore the intrinsic property of swelling of the hydroxypropyl methylcellulose plays a fundamental role in order to have different kind of swelling index. We tested the effectiveness of this sustained release product with different experiments in laboratory. The first one is a formulation of sustained release tablets with diclofenac sodium. Basically, we blended in a ratio 1:1 the active ingredient diclofenac sodium along with the system SR300, and we obtained a powder suitable to be compressed, and we obtained tablets showing in fact a sustained release time for the dissolution of the active ingredient from the matrix to the media. For the SR301, we made two different experiments. The first one, we wanted to blend the SR301 along with metformin. In this formulation, as you could see, there is a prevalence of active ingredient content compared to the excipient. And the same as for diclofenac sodium before, we went in compression and we obtained tablets of 500 milligrams metformin, showing a dissolution curve confirming the sustained release of the active ingredient. We wanted then test the effectiveness of the SR301 using a different ratio between the active ingredient and the excipient. We prepared therefore a batch of metoprolol succinate tablets, whereas the content of the active ingredient is relatively smaller compared to the matrix system, 100 milligrams of active ingredient and 500 milligrams of matrix system. We prepare the tablets, and also in this case, we tested the dissolution rate of the active ingredients, and we compared the release of the active ingredient with the product already available in the market. In this case, we confirm that there is a linearity of the release of the active ingredient from the matrix, totally comparable to the product in the market. And here at each station, accordingly to the increase of the time, we could appreciate how the matrix system swells and jellified. After the previous overview of all the DICOM DC blends available, we go back for a while to analyze indeed how the direct compression process is really interesting and smart technology, allowing to increase the profitability and reducing the risk of losing material during a traditional wet granulation process. On the left of this slide, we see how many steps usually a granulation process involve. At least 6 steps, including the granulation itself, the drying, whether the granulation is made in wet technology, the milling between the granules itself, the calibration, and then the blending, lubrication, and compression. So we have at least 6 steps, while by the direct compression technology, we could reduce the steps only to 3 steps. It is therefore clear that reducing the step, we can reduce the risk of losing material during the process, and moreover, we can even reduce the process time to reach the finished product. In the curve showed on the right part of this slide, we have indeed the blue curve against the green curve, showing how the risk to have loss of material is sensitively reduced and limited using a direct compression process, and the violet curve versus the red curve shows how the time to obtain a batch of 500,000 unit tablets, it is sensitively reduced through a direct compression process versus a traditional process. So finally, what we can say that the direct compression technology is indeed an interesting opportunity the formulator could consider once it has to study a new formula for solid dosage form. In fact, it has a lot of advantages, technology and economically. The DiCOM DC line, it offers to the formulator ready-made blend suitable for pharmaceutical use and nutraceutical application. We hope with this presentation to have been able to give you some deeper insight into our new DiCOM DC line SANAQ, and of course our team will be available with you to discuss further about any request or any needs of details, brochure and samples. In order to follow up this presentation, we kindly ask you to contact Pharmatrans at the below coordinates, and we thank you very much for the attention.